All right, so YouTube Live is being set up right now. All right, shalom, everyone. We're back. I'm going to be starting the prophets portion here, Hosea chapter 13. There's going to be some interesting stuff in this chapter, some interesting differences. Okay, so let's see here. Let me get my modules set up here. I'm going to keep the Bretons for the Septuagint. I think I'll do the Son of Man Bible for the Masoretic. Okay. All right, so Hosea 13. All right, 13. All right, so let's see here. According to the word of Ephraim, he adopted ordinances for himself in Yasharal, and he established them for Baal and died. Interesting. So seems like the house of Israel had a huge problem with Baal worship. Pretty interesting. So verse 1 seems to definitely hint that they started making laws for themselves, which we kind of see today. A lot of us coming out of Christianity, we inherited falsehood from those traditions, kind of similar to Ephraim. A lot of Baal worship in that religion. Now they have sinned increasingly and have made for themselves a molten image of their silver, according to the fashion of idols, the work of artificers accomplished for them. Sacrifice men for the calves have come to an end. So now you're getting into human sacrifice here. Ephraim is starting to do some weird stuff here. So one of their ordinances they adopted for themselves is human sacrifice. Yeah. Therefore shall they be as a morning cloud and as early dew that passes away. Okay, as the chaff blown away from the threshing floor, as a vapor from tears. But I am Yahuwah your Elohim. Here, you might want to make a note about this difference of a verse. There seems to be something missing in our Bibles in this verse, okay? Whose hands have framed the whole army of heaven. But I showed them not to you that you should go after them. And I brought you out of the land of Egypt that you shall know no mighty one but me. And there is no savior besides me. So Yahuwah is saying here, I did not show you the angels, so you should go after them. Sounds like we shouldn't be doing astrology at all. Or the Mazaroff at all. Okay? I tended you as a shepherd in the wilderness and in an uninhabited land, according to their pastures. So they were completely filled and their hearts were exalted. Therefore, they forgot me. And I will be to them as a panther and as a leopard. I will meet them by the way of the Assyrians as a she-bear excited, and I will rend the call of their heart, and the lion's whelps of the thicket shall devour them there. The wild beasts of the field shall rend them in pieces. O Yasharal, who will aid you in your destruction? Where is this your king? Let him even save you in all your cities. Now, this to me is people say, oh, we shouldn't bear a grudge. It's wrong to bear a grudge. Well, guess what? Yahuwah bears grudges. Okay, right here. He's actually facetiously saying to them, yeah, you wanted a king so bad like the Gentiles, right? Let him save you. Where is this your king? Let him even save you in all your cities. Let him rightly rule you, of whom you said, give me a king and a prince. And I gave you a king in my anger and kept him back in my wrath. Ephraim has framed a conspiracy of unrighteousness. His sin is hidden. Pains of a woman in travail have come upon him. He is your wise son, because he shall not stay in the destruction of your children. I will deliver them out of the power of Hades and will redeem them from death. Where is your penalty, O death? O Hades, where is your sting? Comfort is hidden from mine eyes. For as much as he will cause a division among his brothers, Yahuwah shall bring upon him an east wind from the desert, shall dry up his veins, and quite drain his fountains. He shall dry up his land and spoil all his precious vessels. Samaria shall be utterly destroyed, for she has resisted her Elohim. They shall fall by the sword, and their sucklings shall be dashed against the ground, and their women and child ripped up. Now that seems to be like a fulfillment of Deuteronomy, I think 28 it was, where he talks about your children will be taken from you and all that. So it seems like in the time of Hosea, we have a partial fulfillment of Deuteronomy 28, from what I can see here. So that's the end of chapter 13. So I'm just trying to see. What really spoke to me here was in verse 16, Yahuwah is equating Ephraim with Samaria. So this is where me and other believers get the idea that the Samaritans were, northern house Israelites that kind of snuck back into the land. Go ahead, Joshua. I see you got your hand up.
I can go after you're done, bro.
Okay, let me just see here. So we pretty much already talked about verse 2, verse 4, 16. There was something about 10 I wanted to go back to. Let's see here. Oh, verse 14. I like the Son of Man Bible makes a little note here. 1 Corinthians 15, 54 to 57. So just like I do, the translator of the Son of Man Bible understands who the person Hades is referring to, or death. It's actually referring to Satan himself, who has the power of death. So what Yahuwah is actually saying here is that I am going to deliver my people out of the power of Satan and will redeem them from Satan. So if I was to paraphrase it, according to what Paul is saying in 1 Corinthians 15, 54 to 57. So Hades is like a deity in Greek mythology. FYI, people that don't know, Hades is supposed to be the deity of death, the deity of the underworld. So basically, I think what happened is the Septuagint writers are trying to relate to their audience at that time. Mind you, they're translating the scriptures for the Greek people. So in a way, they're kind of like poking at them, saying, your God of death is going to be destroyed. And I believe that's why even Yahusha, we go to the Brit Hadashah, Yahusha literally talks about the gates of Hades will have no power over my assembly. So we see a lot of a language like that, like Yahusha poking fun at Satan. So I'm not saying Satan's really the deity of the underworld. That's what Greek mythology believes. But what I'm saying is that this entity called death is referring to Satan, according to what Paul believes too in 1 Corinthians 15. So, and you can find other places in the New Testament in 1 John where John says that Satan has the power of death. So anyway, go ahead, Joshua. I'm going to let you go.
I just think it's interesting how the Charles Thompson Septuagint 13:1 reads a little bit differently than the Bretons or the LX. Rather than saying that, I think the Bretons reads, or the Complete Apostles Bible, I think they read the same, but it says, according to the word of Ephraim, he adopted ordinances for himself in Yasharal, and he established them for Baal and died. Charles Thompson says, according to Ephraim's own account, he received rules of rectitude by Yasharal, but he attributed them to Baal and incurred death. That rendering kind of just reminds me of them after them receiving the receiving instructions, and they didn't receive all of them, but by the time they received certain instructions, and Moshe went up to the top of the mountain, and they mistook. They traded Yahuwah for the golden calf, That's what that reminds me of. Um, but it's just kind of a different little. I think both could be accurate, but it's a little bit different rendering than the complete Apostles Bible.
Yeah, to your point, it's like a different point of view, really, with that difference there. It's like, and that's what I see with the Masoretic too. It's like a different point of view. The trembling could be referring to as guilt, and yeah, which the ESV actually has a couple of footnotes here. They put Micah 1:13, Hosea 2:13, multiple times that Ephraim is. It seems like he's adopting some type of laws for Baal for himself rather than keeping the Torah. And he could be also appropriating, to that other point of view, he could be appropriating the Torah to Baal. Like,
that's what you see in Christianity. You see them appropriating the scriptures to JC and Lord.
yeah, I mean, I could definitely see that. The idea in Hosea and other parts of Hosea, Yahuwah says, they didn't realize I'm the one that gave them the corn and the wine and all that. So there, at some point in time, the worship of Yahuwah is being mixed with Baal, and then it was even being reappropriated to Baal. And that's why you see today many people in the land call Yahuwah by the name of Baal, and they don't even realize it. A lot of Jewish people today use the traditional title Adonai, not realizing where that name comes from. So that, yeah, Ephraim's traditions they kind of carried all the way through, and even to the Southern House kind of adopted them, it seems. So yes, I was just curious to see if the Latin Vulgate had it reading any differently, but it seems the same as the Masoretic. Ephraim was speaking, a horror entered Yasharal, offended by Baal, and he died. It's almost the same thing as the Masoretic. So yeah, I think verse 2, they have made for themselves an image from cast silver. Yeah, that's very similar to the Jeroboam sin. And I think last week we talked about it, talking about the calves of Samaria, that they're actually referring to idols. So the golden calf and all that. Yeah. So a lot of weird stuff, human sacrifice and all that. All right. So we're going to go to the next chapter here. Hosea 14. All right. So now we're going to go back to the compare view here. All right. Return, O Yasharal, to Yahuwah your Elohim, for the people have fallen through their lawlessnesses. Take with your words and turn to Yahuwah your Elohim. Interesting. There's no Elohim there in that verse. Interesting. Okay, so omitted. Elohim. Speak to him that you may not receive the reward of unrighteousness, but that you may receive tob things, and we will render in return the fruit of our lips. So that we may offer bulls, which we have promised to do. Interesting. So the Masoretic has a little bit extra there in that verse, referring to the bulls of their lips as the fruit of their lips. Very interesting. Assyria shall never save us. We will not mount on horseback. If you know, like the idea of the Assyrian and all that, to me, that's very prophetic to say that Ashur will never save us. I like that. We will not mount on horseback. We will no longer say to the works of our hands, our mighty ones, he who is in you shall pity the orphan. That was the biggest problem with Yasharal back then. They did not do justice for the orphan and the widow of their own people. I will restore their dwellings. I will love them truly, for he has turned away my wrath from him. Interesting. The he there is not in the Masoretic. I find that interesting. I think I know why it's not there. because this is a prophecy referring to a separate entity is turning the Father's wrath away from his people, which it very well could be referring to Yahusha here. And the Mazarites wouldn't want that. They took the word he out of there on purpose, probably because, well, then they could realize, there's a person who is using to turn away his wrath from them, which literally is what Paul talks about. Where is that, Mom? In Romans?
I think so.
He saved us from the Father's wrath.
Mm-hmm.
I will be as dew to Yasharel. He shall bloom as the lily and cast forth his roots as Lebanon. His branches shall spread, and he shall be as a fruitful olive, like an olive tree. And his smell shall be as the smell of Lebanon. They shall return and dwell under his shadow. They shall live and be satisfied with grain or corn. He shall flower as a vine. His memorial shall be to Ephraim as the wine of Lebanon. Interesting. Huh. Ephraim's nowhere there in the Masoretic. That's a little weird. That's kind of interesting. I wonder if they had a preconceived bias there because of the whole prodigal son thing. Ephraim omitted. Yeah, go ahead, Joshua.
Unless the ABP is wrong in verse 4, I don't think that he should be there in the Septuagint either. The word that's there is ego, G1473, which is showing it's I, me, or my. They render it, I will love them confessedly, for my anger turned away from them. Or it could be, I guess, I turned my anger away from them.
Okay.
But,
All right. Yeah, that's possible. Let me see. So his memorial, yeah. Ephraim. What has he to do anymore with idols? I have afflicted him. I will strengthen him. I am as a leafy juniper tree. From me is your fruit found. Who is wise? And actually, I want to make a little note of verse 8 there because that goes to Yahusha there. From me is your fruit found. Is your fruit found. And you can find this in the book of John. I think it's chapter 14. He talks about it's either 10 or 14.
15, I think. I am the vine.
Yeah, I am the vine. You're the branches. You can't do anything without me.
That's 15.
So we bear fruit because of Yahusha the vine.
Mm-hmm.
Who is wise and will understand these things, or prudent will know them. For the ways of Yahuwah are straight, and the righteous shall walk in them, but the wicked shall fall therein. So that's the end of the Hosea portion here. So pretty much self-explanatory. Chapter 14 is pretty much, again, continuing the theme of Yahuwah's desire for Ephraim to repent. Basically, he's even saying, turn from your wicked ways and you won't get what you deserve, to paraphrase verse 2 there. Okay, so that's really the theme of those two chapters there. So now we're going to go to 2 Chronicles 15 and 24. And the theme of Yahuwah's desire for Ephraim to repent. Why it keeps doing that, stupid YouTube keeps playing stuff in the background there. My bad, guys. All right, so let's see. We're going to have a couple new readers now. I know my mom hasn't read yet. Joshua hasn't read yet. I'm thinking, Joshua, if you could read 2 Chronicles. Let's see here. 15 to 18. And then my mom could read the rest. Or even if you feel,
I can do that.
Okay. All right. So 2 Chronicles 15 to 18. Let me just get the screen ready here so I can have.
What were you going to say after that?
Oh, I was gonna say, even if you feel up to it, you could read chapter 19 also.
Mhm.
I don't do it in 19 unless your mom wants to read it.
No, that's okay. You can do that. That'll leave me with 4 chapters.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chapters.
All right. Okay. Just get this on here.
All right. So the Second Chronicles chapter 15, the Ruach of Yahuwah came upon Azariah, son of Oded, and he went out to meet Asa and all Yehuda and Benjamin, and said, "Hear me, Asa, and all Yehuda and Benjamin. Yahuwah is with you while you are with him, and if you seek him, he will be found by you. But if you forsake him, he will forsake you. And though for a long time Yasharal may be without the true Elohim, without a teaching priest, and without Torah," go figure, we were just talking about that. Yet when they shall turn to Yahuwah Aluah of Yasharal, he will be found by them. And though at that time there be no shalom to him who goes out or to him who comes in, because the terror of Yahuwah is on all the inhabitants of these countries, though nation may fight against nation, and city against city, because Yahuwah hath confounded them with all kinds of affliction. You strengthen, yet strengthen you yourselves, and let not your hands be weak, for your work shall be rewarded. Upon hearing these words and the prophecy of the prophet Adad, Asa took courage and removed the abominations out of all the land of Yehuda and Benjamin, and from all the cities he held from Jeroboam on Mount Ephraim. And having dedicated anew the altar of Yahuwah, which is before the temple of Yahuwah, he assembled Yehuda and the strangers who worshipped with him from Ephraim and from Manasseh and from Simeon, and for many of the Yasharites had joined him when they saw that Yahuwah his Elohah was with him. And when they assembled at Jerusalem in the 3rd month, in the 15th year of the reign of Asa, he offered as a sacrifice to Yahuwah on that day of the prey which they had brought 700 beeves, guessing that's calves, 700 beeves and 7,000 sheep, and entered into a covenant to seek Yahuwah Aluah of their fathers with all their hearts and with all their soul, and that whoever would not seek Yahuwah Aluah of Yasharal should be put to death, whether young or old, whether man or woman. And when they had sworn to Yahuwah with a loud voice, the trumpets and the cornets sounded, and all Yehuda rejoiced at the oath, for they swore with their whole heart and sought him with their whole desire, and he was found by them. And Yahuwah gave them rest round about. Moreover, he restrained Ma'akah, his mother, from performing religious service to Astarte, and he cut to pieces the idol and burned it by the brook Kidron. But the high places were not removed; they still remained in Yasharal. But Asa's heart was perfect all his days, and he brought in the dedication of his father Daud, the set apart things pertaining to the house of Yahuwah, silver and golden vessels. Now Asa was engaged in no war till the 35th year of his reign. Give me 1 second, brother. Interesting. 2 Chronicles 15, chapter 16. But in the 38th year of the reign of Asa, the king of Yasharal came up against Yehuda and began building Ramah in order to stop all outlet and inlet to Asa, king of Yehuda. Whereupon Asa took silver and gold out of the treasuries of the house of Yahuwah and the king's house, and sent to the son of Adair, king of Syria, who dwelt at Damascus, saying, "Make a covenant between me and you, as there was between my father and your father. Behold, I have sent you gold and silver. Come and remove from me Baasa, king of Yasharal, and let him depart from me." Accordingly, son Adair hearkened to King Asa and sent the generals of his army against the cities of Yasharal, and smote Aion and Dan and Abelmine and all the territories adjacent to Nephthalim. At the news of this, Baasa quit building and put a stop to the work. Whereupon King Asa took all Yehuda and carried away the stones of Ramah and the timber thereof, with which Baasa was building, and with them built Gabai and Maspah. At that time, Hanani the prophet came to Asa, king of Yehuda, and said to him, "Seeing you have put your trust in the king of Syria and have not relied on Yahuwah your Allah, therefore the army of the king of Syria hath escaped out of your hand. Were not the Ethiopians and the Libyans to be dreaded for their huge army, for their prowess, for their horsemen, for their immense multitude? Yet because you did not rely on Yahuwah, he delivered them into your hand. The eyes of Yahuwah looked throughout the whole earth to strengthen them whose heart is perfect towards him. In this matter you have acted foolishly. Henceforward you shall have war." Upon this, Asa was enraged at the prophet and committed him to prison. Because this gave offense, Asa proceeded to outrage against the people at the same time. Now behold, the acts of Asa, first and last, are written in the book of the kings of Yehuda and Yasharal. In the 39th year of his reign, Asa was diseased in his feet till he became very sick. But in his sickness, he did not apply to Yahuwah, but to physicians. And Asa slept with his fathers. He did in the 40th year of his reign, and they buried him in the tomb which he had hewn out for himself in the city of Daud. And when they had composed him on the bed, they filled it with spices and all kinds of perfumes prepared by apothecaries, and made a very great funeral procession for him. 2 Chronicles 17. And Jehoshaphat his son reigned in his stead. And Jehoshaphat strengthened himself against Joshua and put garrisons in all the fortified cities of Yehuda, and appointed governors in all the cities of Yehuda and in the cities of Ephraim, which his father Asa had taken. And Yahuwah was with Jehoshaphat, because he walked in the first way of his father, and consulted not the idols, but sought Yahuwah Allah of his father, and walked in the commands of his father, and not according to the works of Yashral. Therefore Yahuwah established the kingdom in his hand, and all Yehuda gave gifts to Yehoshaphat, so that he had riches and honor and abundance. And his heart being exalted in the way of Yahuwah, he removed the high places and the bowers out of the land of Yehuda. And in the 3rd year of his reign, he sent with the heads of families, these rulers of his, namely Abdiah and Zechariah and Nathaniel and Micaiah, to teach in the cities of Yehuda. And with them were these Levites, namely Semiah, Nathaniah, Zabdiah, Aziel, and Semiramoth, and Jonathan, and Adoniah, and Tobiah, and Tabadoniah, who were Levites. And with them Elishama and Joram, who were priests. And they have taught in Yehuda, having with them in the book of the Torah of Yahuwah. They went through the cities of Yehuda and taught the people. And there was a dread of Yahuwah in all the kingdoms of the land around Yehuda, so that they did not make war on Yehoshaphat. Nay, from the Philistines they brought Yehoshaphat silver for their gifts, and the Arabs brought him for their gifts 7,700 rams. And Yehoshaphat advanced in greatness to a high degree, built castles and strong cities in Yehuda, and had many works done for him in Yehuda. And with regard to the warriors, the mighty men who strengthened him in Jerusalem, this is the number of them according to the houses of their patriarchal families. The chiliarchs for Yehuda were Edna the chief, and with him sons, mighties of the army, 300 chiliads. And after him Johanan the leader, and with him 280 chiliads. What is that word? Oh, okay, so that's it's 280,000. That's a weird word for thousand. Rather than putting thousand, this translator is putting chiliad. That must be a really old word. And after him, Amasias the Zarite, who devoted himself to Yahuwah, and with him 200,000 mighties of the army. And from Benjamin, a mighty of the army, namely Eliada, and with him bowmen, and those armed with shields, 200,000. And after him, Jozabed, and with him 80,000 mighties of battle. All these waited on the king, excepting them who the king placed in the fortified cities throughout all Yehuda. chapter 18. Now while Jehoshaphat was still advancing in riches and great esteem, he allied himself by marriage with the house of Ahab. And after some years went down to Samaria to Achab, and Achab sacrificed sheep and bullocks in abundance for him and the people with him, and made court to him that he might go with him to Ramoth of Galaditis. And when Ahab king of Yashruel said to Jehoshaphat king of Yehuda, will you go with me to Ramoth of Galaditis? He replied, I am as you are. Okay, that's Gilead. Then Jehoshaphat said to the king of Yashruel, inquire now, I pray you, of Yahuwah. Therefore the king of Yashruel assembled the prophets, 400 men, and said to them, shall I go to Ramoth Gilead to battle, or shall I forbear? And they said, go up, for Yahuwah will deliver into the king's hands. Then Jehoshaphat said, is there not a prophet here of Yahuwah, that we may inquire by him? And the king of Yashruel said to Jehoshaphat, there is still a man by whom we may inquire of Yahuwah, but I hate him, for he never prophesies good of me, but always evil. One Micaiah, son of Yimla. And Jehoshaphat said, let not the king speak so. And the king called the chamberlain and said, bring here quickly Micaiah, son of Yimla. Now the king of Yashruel and Jehoshaphat, king of Yehuda, were seated each on his throne, arrayed in robes, and they sat in the open space at the entrance of the gate of Samaria, and all the prophets prophesied before them. And Zedekiah, son of Canaan, made for himself horns of iron, and said, thus says Yahuwah, with these you shall push Syria until it be destroyed. And all the prophets prophesied in like manner, saying, go up to Ramoth Gilead, and you shall prosper, for Yahuwah will deliver into the king's hands. So the messenger whom went to call Micaiah spoke to him, saying, behold, all the prophets have with one mouth spoken good things of the king. Let your words, I pray you, be as one of them, and speak good things. To whom Micaiah replied, as Yahuwah lives, whatever Yahuwah shall say to me, that I will speak. And when he came to the king said to him, Micaiah, shall I go to Ramoth Gilead to battle, or shall I forbear? To which he replied, go up, that you may prosper, and they be delivered into your hands. So get 14 to 15. Then the king said to him, how often must I adjure you that you speak nothing to me but truth in the name of Yahuwah? Whereupon he said, I saw Yashruel scattered about the mountains like sheep which have no shepherd. And Yahuwah said, they have no leader, let them return every man to his house in shalom. Then the king of Yashruel said to Jehoshaphat, did I not tell you that he would not prophesy good of me, but evil? And Micaiah said, is not this the case? Hear the word of Yahuwah. I saw Yahuwah seated on his throne, and all the host of Shamaim stood, some on his right hand and some on his left. And Yahuwah said, who will deceive Ahab, king of Yashruel, that he may go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead? And when one spoke in this manner and another in that, there came forth a rock and stood before Yahuwah and said, I will deceive him. And Yahuwah said, by what means? To which he replied, I will go forth and be a lying ruach in the mouth of all his prophets. And he said, you will deceive and prevail, go and do so. Now therefore, behold, Yahuwah hath put a lying ruach in the mouth of these your prophets, but Yahuwah hath spoken evil against you. Then Zedekiah, son of Canaan, came near and smote Micaiah on the cheek and said to him, which way went the ruach of Yahuwah from me to speak to you? To which Micaiah replied, behold, you shall see on that day when you shall go from one inner chamber to another to hide yourself. Then the king of Yashruel said, take Micaiah and carry him back to Emer, the governor of the city, to Joash the chief, the king's son, and say, thus says the king, put this fellow in prison and let him be fed with bread of affliction and water of affliction until I return in shalom. And Micaiah said, if you return in shalom, Yahuwah hath not spoken by me. And he said, hear, all people. Then the king of Yashruel and Jehoshaphat, king of Yehuda, went up to Ramoth Gilead, and the king of Yashruel said to Jehoshaphat, let me disguise myself, and I will go into the battle, and put thou on my robes. So the king of Yashral disguised himself and went into the battle. Now the king of Syria had given a charge to the commanders of his chariots who were with him, saying, "Fight neither with small nor great, but only with the king of Yashral." So when the commanders of the chariots saw Yehoshaphat, they said, "This is the king of Yashral," and wheeled about in order to attack him. Whereupon Yehoshaphat cried aloud, and Yahweh saved him, and Yahuwah caused them to turn back from him. And when the commanders of the chariots saw that it was not the king of Yashral and turned from him, a man drew a bow at a venture and smote the king of Yashral between the lungs and the breast, whereupon he said to his charioteer, "Turn your hand and carry me out of the battle, for I am wounded." But as the battle was that day disastrous, he was kept on his chariot over against the. But as the battle was not that day disastrous, he was kept in his chariot over against the Syrians till the evening, and at the setting of the sun he died. Now when Yehoshaphat, king of Yehuda, was returning to his house to Jerusalem, Yahu the son of Anani the prophet went out to meet him and said to him, "King Yehoshaphat, do you aid a sinner or form friendship with one hated by Yahuwah? On this account there would have been wrath against you, but for the good works which have been found in you, and for your having removed the bowers out of the land of Yehuda and directed your heart to seek Yahuwah." So Yehoshaphat dwelt at Jerusalem. Chapter 19. So Yehoshaphat dwelt at Jerusalem and again went out for the people from Beersheba to Mount Ephraim and brought them back to Yahweh Elohah their fathers. And when he appointed the judges in all the fortified cities of Yehuda, city by city, he said to the judges, "Take heed what you do, for you judge not for man, but for Yahuwah, and with you are the words of the judgment. Now therefore let the fear of Yahuwah be upon you. Keep watch, and do your duty. For with Yahuwah, our Elohah, there is no injustice, nor respect of persons, nor taking of bribes." And Jerusalem also Yehoshaphat appointed some of the priests and the Levites and patriarchs of Yasharal for the judgment of Yahuwah, and to judge the inhabitants of Jerusalem. And he gave them a charge, saying, "Thus shall you act in the fear of Yahuwah with truth and with an upright heart. You must all conjointly determine every cause of your brethren who dwell in their cities, which shall come before you for decision between blood, and between ordinance and command. And you shall explain to them the rules of rectitude and judgments, that they may not sin against Yahuwah, and that no wrath may come upon you, nor upon your brethren. Thus you shall do and not sin. And behold, Amariah the priest is ruler over you for every word of Yahuwah, and Zebdiah, son of Ishmael, the ruler of the house of Yehuda, for every matter touching the king, and the scribes and the Levites are to attend you. Be firm and do your duty, and Yahuwah will be with the Tob." That's chapter 19. I had a question on 18, 14, and 15. I think that's 18, 14, and 15.
Okay. All right. What's your question, bro?
I'm sorry, I was trying to find it. Okay, so it says, to whom, starting in 13, it says, "To whom Micaiah replied, As Yahweh lives, whatever Yahweh shall say to me, that I will speak. And when he came to the king said to him, Micaiah, shall I go to Ramoth Galaad to battle, or shall I forbear? To which he replied, Go up that you may prosper, and they be delivered into your hands. Then the king said to him, How often must I adjure you that you speak nothing to me but truth in the name of Yahuwah? And then 16, he says, I shall Israel scattered upon the mountains like sheep, which have no shepherd, and so on. But in 13, he says that as Yahuwah lives, he will only say what Yahuwah says. But the very first thing that he says doesn't seem to be that, because he seems to agree with the other prophets. In verse 14, he says, Go up that you may prosper, and they be delivered into your hands. But he just said, as Yahuwah lives, whatever he will say, that will he speak. So why is he giving the wrong answer the first time? But then after being rebuked by the king because the king seems to know it's the wrong answer, that he says what Yahuwah told him to say.
I'm not too sure. I know that Yahuwah is also supposed to be sending a deceptive spirit to the king also. So I don't know. I don't know if that has anything to do with this, because we just that was like in the earlier chapters. He's talking about send a deceiving spirit to him. So I kind of wonder if that has anything to do with why the king so I'm trying to figure out. Yeah, that's a little confusing, why the prophet's saying to him one thing and then he says something completely different after that.
Unless he was scared. I don't know.
Yeah. He said, I saw Yeshua scared on the mountains. I not to you that he would not prophesy good. What I find interesting, though, is this king, he doesn't like this prophet because this prophet never tells him what he wants to hear. So it's almost like what Paul talks about in First or Second Timothy, where he talks about in the latter days, people will heap up teachers for themselves, tickling their ears. So this king has like that same it's almost like that same syndrome or theology, that he don't want to hear anything that's against his flesh. He don't want to hear anyone telling him that he's in the wrong. So he don't want to hear a true prophet. He wants to hear a false prophet, because a false prophet will tell you, what you want to hear. Tons of them in Christianity today do it. They say, "Oh, everything's good's coming to you. Judgment's
Your
not
best
coming.
life now.
Your judgment's not coming to America." So that's what I kind of got from those couple of chapters here. And this shows that Yahuwah, that even demons have to obey Yahuwah. Demons are under his control. Which we've been taught wrongfully through Christianity, that Satan's the commander of demons or whatever, where actuality, demons don't answer to Satan, they answer to Yahuwah. So that's something we've been wrongfully taught in Christianity, probably through the idea, like we talked before, about Hades. And the Greek mythology, unfortunately, has infiltrated the Christian church, and a lot of theology that's taught today, it's interwoven in the Greek and Roman pantheons and all that, and that's part of the problem.
And we associate it because they're evil and he's evil, so we assume that.
Yeah, because Hades is the deity of the dead, and Yahushua says, Yahuwah is Elohim of the living and not the dead. So, like, basically, Hades is a perversion of what the biblical Satan is. That's pretty much what Hades is. He's a perversion of it. He's not the exact telling of it. The Greek mythology perverts it a little bit. They make him out to be a deity, a god, which he's not. So, they esteem him as a deity in that religion. That's the major difference. But anyway, so, all right. Let's see here. So, Mom, you're going to be reading what?
20 to 25?
Okay. All right.
Okay, chapter 20. After this, the Moabites and Ammonites, with some of the Moonites, came to make war on Jehoshaphat. Some men came and told Jehoshaphat, a vast army is coming against you from Edom, from the other side of the sea. That is the Dead Sea. Okay, it is already in Hazazon Tamar, that is Irigedi. Alarmed, Jehoshaphat resolved to inquire of Yahuwah, and he proclaimed a fast for all Yehudah. The people of Yehudah came together to seek help from Yahusha. Indeed, they came from every town in Yehudah to seek him. Then Jehoshaphat stood up in the assembly of Yehudah and Jerusalem at the temple of Yahuwah in the front of the new courtyard and said, O Yahuwah, Elohim of our fathers, are you not the Elohim who is in heaven, you rule over the kingdoms of the nations. Power and might are in your hand, and no one can withstand you. O our Elohim, did you not drive out the inhabitants of this land before your people of Yashrael and give it forever to the descendants of Abraham, your friend? They have lived in it and have built in it a sanctuary for your name, saying, if calamity comes upon us, whether the sword or judgment or plague or famine, we will stand in your presence before this temple that bears your name, and will cry out to you in our distress, and you will hear us and save us. But now here are men from Ammon, Moab, and Mount Seir, whose territory you would not allow Yashrael to invade when they came from Egypt. So they turned away from them and did not destroy them. See how they are repaying us by coming to drive us out of the possession you gave us as our inheritance. O our Elohim, will you not judge them? For we have no power to face this vast army that is attacking us. We do not know what to do, but our eyes are upon you. All the men of Yehudah, with their wives and children and little ones, stood there before Yahuwah. Then the spirit of Yahuwah came upon Yahaziel, son of Zechariah, the son of Benaiah, the son of Yael, the son of Mattaniah, a Levite and descendant of Asaph, as he stood in the assembly. He said, listen, King Yehoshaphat, and all who live in Yehudah and Jerusalem, this is what Yahuwah says to you. Do not be afraid or discouraged because of this vast army, for the battle is not yours, but Yahuwah's. Tomorrow march down against them. They will be climbing up by the pass of Ziz, and you will find them at the end of the gorge in the desert of Yeruel. You will not have to fight this battle. Take up your positions, stand firm, and see the deliverance that Yahuwah will give you. O Yehudah and Jerusalem, do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. Go out to face them tomorrow, and Yahuwah will be with you. Yehoshaphat bowed with his face to the ground, and all the people of Yehudah and Jerusalem fell down in worship before Yahuwah. Then some Levites from the Kohathites and the Korathites stood up and praised Yahuwah, the Elohim of Yashrael, with very loud voice. Early in the morning, they left for the desert of Tekoa. As they set out, Yehoshaphat stood and said, listen to me, Yehudah and people of Jerusalem. Have faith in Yahuwah, your Elohim, and you will be upheld. Have faith in his prophets, and you will be successful. After consulting the people, Yehoshaphat appointed men to sing to Yahuwah and to praise him for the splendor of his holiness as they went up out of the head of the army, saying, give thanks to Yahuwah, for his love endures forever. As they began to sing and praise, Yahuwah set ambushes against the men of Ammon and Moab and Mount Seir, who were invading. The men of Ammon and Moab rose up against the men of Mount Seir to destroy and annihilate them. After they finished slaughtering the men from Seir, they helped to destroy one another. When the men of Yehudah came to the place that overlooks the desert and looked toward the vast army, they saw only dead bodies lying on the ground. No one had escaped. So Yehoshaphat and his men went to carry off their plunder, and they found among them a great amount of equipment and clothing, and also articles of value, more than they could take away. There was so much plunder that it took 3 days to collect it. On the fourth day, they assembled in the valley of Barakah, where they praised Yahuwah. This is why it is called the valley of Barakah to this day. Then, led by Yehoshaphat, all the men of Yehudah and Jerusalem returned joyfully to Jerusalem, for Yahuwah had given them cause to rejoice over their enemies. They entered Jerusalem and went to the temple of Yahuwah with harps and lutes and trumpets. The fear of Yahuwah came upon all the kingdoms of the countries when they heard how Yahuwah had fought against the enemies of Yashrael. And the kingdoms of Jehoshaphat was at peace, for his Elohim had given him rest on every side. So Jehoshaphat reigned over Yehuda. He was 35 years old when he became king of Yehuda, and he reigned in Jerusalem 25 years. His mother's name was Azubah, daughter of Shilhi. He walked in the ways of his father Asa and did not stray from them. He did what was right in the eyes of Yahuwah. The high places, however, were not removed, and the people still had not set their hearts on the Elohim of their fathers. The other events of Jehoshaphat's reign, from beginning to end, are written in the annals of Yehu, son of Hanani, which are recorded in the book of the kings of Yashrael. Later, Jehoshaphat, king of Yehuda, made an alliance with Ahaziah, king of Yashrael, who was guilty of wickedness. He agreed with him to construct a fleet of trading ships. After these were built at Ezion-Geber, Eleazar, son of Dodavahu of Morashah, prophesied against Jehoshaphat, saying, "Because you have made an alliance with Ahaziah, Yahuwah will destroy what you have made." The ships were wrecked and were not able to set sail to trade. Chapter 21. Then Jehoshaphat rested with his fathers and was buried with them in the city of David. And Jehoram his son succeeded him as king. Jehoram's brothers, the sons of Jehoshaphat, were Azariah, Yathiel, Zechariah, Azariahu, Mikael, and Shephatiah. All these were sons of Jehoshaphat, king of Yashrael. Their father had given them many gifts of silver and gold and articles of value, as well as fortified cities in Yehuda. But he had given the kingdom to Jehoram because he was his firstborn son. When Jehoram established himself firmly over his father's kingdom, he put all his brothers to the sword, along with some of the princes of Yashrael. Jehoram was 32 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 8 years. He walked in the ways of the kings of Yashrael, as the house of Ahab had done, for he married a daughter of Ahab. He did evil in the eyes of Yahuwah. Nevertheless, because of the covenant Yahuwah had made with him, Yahuwah was not willing to destroy the house of David. He had promised to maintain a lamp for David and his descendants forever. In the time of Jehoram, Edom rebelled against Yehuda and set up its own king. So Jehoram went there with his officers and all his chariots. The Edomites surrounded him and his chariot commanders, but he rose up and broke through by night. To this day, Edom has been in rebellion against Yehuda. Libnah revolted at the same time because Jehoram had forsaken Yahuwah, the Elohim of his fathers. He had also built high places on the hills of Yehuda and had caused the people of Jerusalem to prostitute themselves and had led Yehuda astray. Jehoram received a letter from Elijah the prophet, which said, "This is what Yahuwah, the Elohim of your father David, says. You have not walked in the ways of your father Jehoshaphat or of Asa, king of Yehuda, but you have walked in the ways of the kings of Yashrael, and you have led Yehuda and the people of Jerusalem to prostitute themselves, just as the house of Ahab did. You all have also murdered your own brothers, members of your father's house, men who were better than you. So now Yahuwah is about to strike your people, your sons, your wives, and everything that is yours with a heavy blow. You yourself will be very ill with a lingering disease of the bowels. until the disease causes your bowels to come out. Yahuwah aroused against Jehoram the hostility of the Philistines and of the Arabs who lived near the Cushites. They attacked Yehudah, invaded it, and carried off all the goods found in the king's palace, together with his sons and wives. Not a son was left to him except Ahaziah, the youngest. After all this, Yahuwah afflicted Jehoram with an incurable disease of the bowels. In the course of time, at the end of the second year, his bowels came out because of the disease, and he died in great pain. His people made no fire in his honor as they had for his fathers. Jehoram was 32 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 8 years. He passed away to no one's regret, and was buried in the city of David, but not in the tombs of the kings. Chapter 22. The people of Jerusalem made Ahaziah, Jehoram's youngest son, king in his place, since the raiders who came with the Arabs had killed all older sons. So Ahaziah, son of Jehoram, king of Yehudah, began to reign. Ahaziah was 22 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 1 year. His mother's name was Athaliah, a granddaughter of Omri. He too walked in the ways of the house of Ahab, for his mother encouraged him in doing wrong. He did evil in the eyes of Yahuwah, as the house of Ahab had done, for after his father's death, they became his advisors to his undoing. He also followed their counsel. When he went with Joram, son of Ahab, king of Yashrael, to war against Hazael, king of Aram, at Ramoth, Gilead, the Arameans wounded Joram, so he returned to Jezreel to recover from the wounds they had inflicted on him at Ramoth, in his battle with Hazael, king of Aram. Then Ahaziah, son of Jehoram, king of Yehudah, went down to Jezreel to see Joram, son of Ahab, because he had been wounded. Through Ahaziah's visit to Joram, Yahuwah brought about Ahaziah's downfall. When Ahaziah arrived, he went out to Joram to meet Yehu, son of Nimshi, whom Yahuwah had anointed to destroy the house of Ahab. While Yehu was executing judgment on the house of Ahab, he found the princes of Yehudah and the sons of Ahaniah's relatives, who had been attending Ahaziah, and he killed them. He then went in search of Ahaziah, and his men captured him while he was hiding in Samaria. He was brought to Yehu and put to death. They buried him, for they said, he was a son of Jehoshaphat, who sought Yahuwah with all his heart. So there was no one in the house of Ahaziah powerful enough to retain the kingdom. When Athaliah, the mother of Ahaziah, saw that her son was dead, she proceeded to destroy the whole royal family of the house of Yehudah. But Yehosheba, the daughter of King Jehoram, took Joash, son of Ahaziah, and stole him away from among the royal princes who were about to be murdered, and put him and his nurse in a bedroom. Because Yehosheba, the daughter of King Jehoram and wife of the priest Jehoiada, was Ahaziah's sister. She hid the child from Athaliah so she could not kill him. He remained hidden with them at the temple of Yahuwah for 6 years while Athaliah ruled the land. In the 7th year, Jehoiada showed his strength. He made a covenant with the commanders of units of 100. Azariah, son of Yeroham, Ishmael, son of Yehohanan, and Azariah, son of Obed, Messiah, son of Adiah, and Elishaphat, son of Zikri. They went throughout Yehuda and gathered the Levites and the heads of Yashreelites families from all the towns. When they came to Jerusalem, the whole assembly made a covenant with the king at the temple of Yahuwah. Jehoiada said to them, "The king's son shall reign, as Yahuwah promised concerning the descendants of David. Now this is what you are to do. A third of you priests and Levites, you are going on duty on the Shabbat, are to keep watch at the doors, a third of you at the royal palace, and a third at the foundation gate, and all the other men are to be in the courtyards of the temple of Yahuwah. No one is to enter the temple of Yahuwah except the priests and Levites on duty. They may enter because they are consecrated, but all the other men are to guard what Yahuwah has assigned to them. The Levites are to station themselves around the king, each man with his weapons in his hand. Anyone who enters the temple must be put to death. Stay close to the king wherever he goes." The Levites and all the men of Yehuda did just as Jehoiada the priest ordered. Each one took his men, those who were going on duty on the Shabbat, and those who were going off duty. For Jehoiada the priest had not released any of the divisions. Then he gave the commanders of units of 100 the spears and the large and small shields that had belonged to King David, and they were in the temple of Yahuwah. He stationed all the men, each with his weapon in his hand, around the king, near the altar and the temple, from the south side to the north side of the temple. Jehoiada and his sons brought out the king's sons and put the crown on him. They presented him with a copy of the covenant and proclaimed him king. They anointed him and shouted, "Long live the king." When Athaliah heard the noise of the people running and cheering the king, she went to them at the temple of Yahuwah. She looked, and there was the king standing by his pillar at the entrance. The officers and the trumpeters were beside the king, and all the peoples of the land were rejoicing and blowing trumpets. And singers with musical instruments were leading the praises. Then Athaliah tore her robes and shouted, "Treason! Treason!" Jehoiada the priest sent out the commanders of units of 100 who were in charge of the troops and said to them, "Bring her out between the ranks and put to the sword anyone who follows her." For the priest had said, "Do not put her to death at the temple of Yahuwah." So they seized her as she reached the entrance of the horse gate on the palace grounds, and there they put her to death. Jehoiada then made a covenant that he and the people and the king would be Yahuwah's people. All the people went to the temple of Baal and tore it down. They smashed the altars and idols and killed Matan, the priest of Baal, in front of the altars. Then Jehoiada placed the oversight of the temple of Yahuwah in the hands of priests who were Levites, to whom David had made assignments in the temple to present the burnt offerings of Yahuwah, as written in the law of Moshe, with rejoicing and singing, as David had ordered. He also stationed doorkeepers at the gates of Yahuwah's temple, so that no one who was in any way unclean might enter. He took with him the commanders of hundreds, the nobles, the rulers of the people, and the peoples of the land, and brought the king down from the temple of Yahuwah. They went into the palace through the upper gate and seated the king on the royal throne. And all the peoples of the land rejoiced. And the city was quiet, because Athaliah had been slain with the sword. Yoash, chapter 24. Let me just grab a quick drink. Okay. Yoash was 7 years old when he became king. consequently the youngest king. And he reigned in Jerusalem 40 years. His mother's name was Zebiah. She was from Beersheba. Joash did what was right in the eyes of Yahuwah all the years of Jehoiada the priest. Jehoiada chose 2 wives for him, and he had sons and daughters. Sometime later, Joash decided to restore the temple of Yahuwah. You see, it's not about age. Here's a little 7-year-old boy doing what's right in the eyes of Yahuwah. He called together the priests and Levites and said to them, "Go to the towns of Yehuda and collect the money due annually from all Yashrael to repair the temple of your Elohim. Do it now." But the Levites did not act at once. Therefore, the king summoned Jehoiada, the chief priest, and said to them, "Why haven't you required the Levites to bring in from Yehuda and Jerusalem the tax imposed by Masha, the servant of Yahuwah, and by the assembly of Yashrael for the tent of the testimony?" Now the sons of that wicked woman, Ataliah, had broken into the temple of Yahuwah and had used even its sacred objects for the Baals. At the king's command, a chest was made and placed outside at the gate of the temple of Yahuwah. A proclamation was then issued in Yehuda and Jerusalem that they should bring to Yahuwah the tax that Masha, the servant of Yahuwah, had required of Yashrael in the desert. All the officials and all the people brought their contributions gladly, dropping them into the chest until it was full. Whenever the chest was brought in by the Levites to the king's officials and they saw that there was a large amount of money, the royal secretary and the officer of the chief priest would come and empty the chest and carry it back to its place. They did this regularly and collected a great amount of money. The king and Jehoiada gave it to the men who carried out the work required for the temple of Yahuwah. They hired masons and carpenters to restore Yahuwah's temple, and also workers in iron and bronze to repair the temple. The men in charge of the work were diligent, and the repairs progressed under them. They rebuilt the temple of Yahuwah according to its original design and reinforced it when they had finished. They brought the rest of the money to the king of Jehoiada, and with it they made articles for Yahuwah's temple, articles for the, and also ladles and other objects of gold and silver. As long as Jehoiada lived, burnt offerings were presented continually in the temple of Yahuwah. Now Jehoiada was old and full of years, and he died at the age of 130. He was buried with the kings in the city of David because of the good he had done in Yashrael for Yahuwah and his temple. After the death of Jehoiada, the officials of Yehuda came and paid homage to the king, and he listened to them. They abandoned the temple of Yahuwah, the Elohim of their fathers, and worshiped Asherah poles and idols because of their guilt. Yahuwah's anger came upon Yehuda and Jerusalem, although Yahuwah sent prophets to the people to bring them back to him, and though they testified against them, they would not listen. Then the spirit of Yahuwah came upon Zechariah, son of Jehoiada, the priest. He stood before the people and said, "This is what Yahuwah says. Why do you disobey Yahuwah's commands? You will not prosper because you have forsaken Yahuwah. He has forsaken you." But they plotted against him, and by order of the king, they stoned him to death in the courtyard of Yahuwah's temple. King Joash did not remember the kindness Zechariah's father Jehoiada had shown him, but killed his son, who said of he lying dying, "May Yahuwah see this and call you to account." At the turn of the year, the army of Aram marched against Joash. It invaded Yehuda and Jerusalem and killed all the leaders of the people. They sent all the plunder to their king in Damascus. Although the Arameans' army had come with only a few men, Yehuda delivered into their hands a much larger army because Yehuda had forsaken Yehuda, the Elohim of their fathers. Judgment was executed upon Joash. When the Arameans withdrew, they left Joash severely wounded. His officials conspired against him for murdering the son of Jehoiada the priest, and they killed him in his bed. So he died and was buried in the city of David, but not in front of the tombs of the kings. Those who conspired against him were Zabad, son of Shemiath, an Ammonite woman, and Jehozabad, son of Shimrith, a Moabite woman. The account of his sons, the many prophecies about him, and the record of the restoration of the temple of Yahuwah are written in the annotations of the book of the Kings, and Amaziah, his son, succeeded him as king. Chapter 25. Amaziah, king of Judah. Amaziah was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 29 years. His mother's name was Jehoiada. She was from Jerusalem. He did what was right in the eyes of Yahuwah, but not wholeheartedly. After the kingdom was firmly in his control, he executed the officials who had murdered his father, the king. Yet he did not put their sons to death, but acted in accordance with what is written in the law in the book of Moshe, where Yahuwah commanded, fathers shall be put to death for their children, fathers shall not be put to death for their children, nor children put to death for their fathers. Each is to die for his own sins. Amaziah called the people of Yehuda together and assigned them according to their families to commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds for all Yehuda and Benjamin. He then mustered those 20 years old or more and found that there were 300,000 men ready for military service, able to handle the spear and shield. He also hired 100,000 fighting men from Yashrael for 100 talents of silver. But a man of Yahuwah came to him and said, O king, these troops from Yashrael must not march with you, for Yahuwah is not with Yashrael, not with any of the people of Ephraim. Even if you go and fight courageously in battle, Yahuwah will overthrow you before the enemy, for Yahuwah has the power to help or to overthrow. Amaziah asked the man of Yahuwah, but what about the 100 talents I paid for these Yashraelite troops? The man of Yahuwah replied, Yahuwah can give you much more than that. So Amaziah dismissed the troops who had come to him from Ephraim and sent them home. They were furious with Yehuda and left for home in a great rage. Amaziah then marshaled his strength and led his army to the valley of Salt, where he killed 10,000 men of Seir. The army of Yehuda also captured 10,000 men alive, took them to the top of a cliff, and threw them down so that all were dashed to pieces. Meanwhile, the troops that Amaziah had sent back and had not allowed to take part in the war raided Judean towns from Samaria to Beth Horon. They killed 3,000 people and carried off great quantities of plunder. When Amaziah returned from slaughtering the Edomites, he brought back the mighty ones of the temples of Seir. He set them up as his own mighty ones, bowed down to them, and burnt sacrifices to them. The anger of Yahuwah burned against Amaziah, and he sent a prophet to him who said, Why do you consult this people's mighty ones, which could not save their own people from your hand? While he was still speaking, the king said to him, "Have we appointed you an advisor to the king? Stop. Why be struck down?" So the prophet stopped, but said, "I know that Yahuwah has determined to destroy you, because you have done this and have not listened to my counsel." After Amaziah, king of Yehuda, consulted his advisors, he sent this challenge to Joash, son of Jehoahaz, the son of Jehu, king of Yashrael. "Come, meet me face to face." But Jehoash, king of Yashrael, replied to Amaziah, king of Yehuda, "A thistle in Lebanon sent a message to a cedar in Lebanon, 'Give your daughter to my son in marriage.' Then a wild beast in Lebanon came along and trampled the thistle underfoot. You say to yourself that you have defeated Edom, and now you are arrogant and proud. But stay at home. Why ask for trouble and cause your own downfall, and that of Yehuda also?" Amaziah, however, would not listen, for Yahuwah so worked that he might hand them over to Jehoash, because they sought the mighty ones of Edom. So Jehoash, king of Yashrael, attacked. He and Amaziah, king of Yehuda, faced each other at Beth Shemesh in Yehuda. Yehuda was routed by Yashrael, and every man fled to his home. Jehoash, king of Yashrael, captured Amaziah, king of Yehuda, the son of Joash, the son of Ahaziah, at Beth Shemesh. Then Joash brought him to Jerusalem and broke down the wall of Jerusalem from the Ephraim gate to the corner gate, a section about 600 feet long. He took all the gold and silver and all the articles found in the temple of Yahuwah that had been in the care of Obed-Edom, together with the palace treasures and the hostages, and returned to Samaria. Amaziah, son of Joash, king of Yehuda, lived for 15 years after the death of Jehoash, son of Jehoshaz, king of Yashrael. As for the other events of Amaziah's reign, from beginning to end, are they not written in the book of the kings of Yehuda and Yashrael? From the time that Amaziah turned away from following Yahuwah, they conspired against him in Jerusalem, and he fled to Lachish. But they sent men after him to Lachish and killed him there. He was brought back by horse and was buried with his fathers in the city of Yehuda.
All right. Let's see here. So we got some interesting things here.
Yeah. Some disappointing, some interesting.
Well, yeah, this is really the time period where you got all these kings. Some kings would go against their pagan fathers. Other ones would continue their father's sins. Found it interesting. Chapter 23 says all the people sounded with trumpets and lyres and harps. To me, that was interesting. Chapter 23, verse 13. Some interesting differences here, too. I noticed in chapter 22, verse 1 here, you have the Masoretic text lacks at the end of the verse. Let me see here. Let me make sure I got the right chapter and verse here. Let's see here. The king. I think I might have wrote down the wrong chapter there. Second. So here we go. Yeah, 23 verse 1, my bad. It's 23 verse 1. So the Masoretic text in chapter 23 verse 1 lacks the house of Yahuwah. So it lacks where these guys went to. So it says, Elisaphan, the son of Zacharias, with him unto the house of Yahuwah. So I thought that was interesting. And then chapter 21, verse 7, I wanted to check something here because the word forever, I wonder if that's actually in the text. Just something I was noticing when talking about the promise to David. And by the way, if you look at the other witnesses about this promise is conditional. So this is why I kind of wonder if the word forever was in the Greek or the Hebrew. It doesn't seem to be there in the Hebrew. So I'm just kind of wondering if that was something added by the translator there. So I just want to look something up real quick. So 2 Chronicles 21:7. Sometimes English translators, they kind of infer things and they'll just add words that are not there sometimes. So I just want to kind of check something real quick. Come on, Eastward, you're killing me here. Killing me. Come on. Yeah, Eastward's acting stupid today. All right. Let me see here. If I have to, I'll use my sword to look up that word. Come on. All right. Ooh, you all right?
It's just the door.
Holy moly. What is going on here, people? Man. All right. Come on. Yeah. Eastward's acting stupid right now. All right. So just want to look at something real quick on my sword here. Let's see here. Go to that verse. And let's see here. Just want to see something real quick. 2 Chronicles 21, 7. And look at the word in the Greek here. So there should, yeah. Forever might not be a correct translation here. According to the ABP here, it says to his sons all the days. Okay. Hemera is the last Greek word in that verse. Just means the day, natural day. Okay, does not mean eternal or forever. Okay. So the word there, the word there, forever, is not in the text. So translators that put forever in that verse, it's incorrect to do that. You're actually adding to scripture there. In 2 Chronicles 21:7, it should just say he would give a light to him and his sons, period. Forever is not there in the text. So that's an assumption that the translator's making. And either way, that if you go to the first time he actually promises David, he says, if your sons obey me. He doesn't say that it's unconditional. It's conditional. So me forever is a contradiction there. Forever should not be there. Because he's not going to unconditionally give it to his wicked sons. So that's something I wanted to make very clear, because many people misunderstand that covenant and they think it's unconditional, that he's going to give it to his descendants regardless, which if you look at today, debunks that theory. There is no king in Israel. There's no king of Judah today. It's conditional. So just want to put that out there, because there's a lot of false misunderstandings about that covenant he gave to David. Many people use this verse which is mistranslated and forever is added into the text. Nowhere does he say forever it's unconditional. He's always going to have someone sitting on his throne. He doesn't say it's unconditional. He says it's conditional, clearly. So by adding forever to the text there, you're creating a contradiction. So that's why it's important. You kind of got to go into the Greek and the Hebrew to really see if words are there or not. And this is not there. So even in the Masoretic text, it's not there. So just wanted to show that. Let's see here. 2 Chronicles 20, verse 12. See here. Second Chronicles 20, verse 12 says, Yahuwah our Elohim. Now in the Masoretic, Yahuwah is not there, completely omitted. It just says our Elohim. Okay, so basically the Septuagint is showing that they took something out of there. Okay, so the Greek word there, the reason I know that for a fact is because you have the word kurios here, which is for Yahuwah, and the Greek word theos. In the Masoretic Hebrew, all you have is Elohim or Elohim, however you want to pronounce it, which is the equivalent for theos, not kurios. So there's a word missing there. So they took Yahuwah's name out of there for whatever stupid reason that they would have had. Another thing I found interesting was, let's see here. I got one more note here. I'm noticing the internet's acting a little weird today. It's a little slow. Come on, man. Stop acting slow. I hate it when our connection does that. All right. Okay. What I found interesting, verse 6 of chapter 20, it says, Yahuwah is the ruler of all the nations. And this reminded me of Deuteronomy 32, verses 8 to 9, that Yahuwah, he's the ruler of all the nations, but he put principalities over them. And then when you go to Psalms chapter 82, that whole chapter is about Yahuwah reprimanding the principalities that he put over the nations. So the nations belong to him, but he set principalities over each nation, like one principality over each nation, 72 nations, 72 angels. So anyway, so I thought that was interesting. And what I thought was pretty interesting, and let me see if I have this translation on here. So let's see here. Wonder why it's acting so weird today. Come on, man. This eSword is acting so weird. What is going on today? All right. What's going on with that? What I found interesting here is that in the book of Isaiah, there's an interesting rendering of this verse in Isaiah 14, referring to Satan. It says, how is Halal? Let me get, this is the Jubilees Bible here, Jubilees 2000 Bible. And I like the way they render this here. Find it on here. Why can't Oh, I don't have it on that phone. That's why. Hold on. Here. Go on here.
Oh, goodness.
Jubilee 2000. Isaiah 14:12. It's interesting because it says here, how are you fallen from heaven, O Halal, son of the morning? Are you cut down to the ground? You did claim the Gentiles as an inheritance. So I find it interesting that Satan wants to claim the Gentiles as his inheritance, but we read today in 2 Chronicles 20, verse 6, Yahuwah is the ruler over all the nations. So I find it interesting. This is just another you could say one of his I wills. I will be like the Most High. He wants to be like Yahuwah, so he wants to claim the Gentiles or the wild branches as his inheritance rather than Yahuwah's inheritance. So I find that interesting. So that's about it. So we're going to continue now to the last, pretty much, the New Testament. And for some reason today, I don't know what it is, but Easter is acting really stupid today. I don't understand why it's doing this today. My goodness. All right, finally. All right. So we're going to go to, let's see, 1 Thessalonians 5. I'll read that just to get us started here. All right, so let me just do a new recording here.